And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Thursday, September 7th. I'm Josh Engleman. I'm joined by nobody because these are solo shows for the rest of the season. Don't be afraid to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. Shout out to Owner's Box for being the sponsor. We will talk about them in a bit because that is the best place that you can get to for the first Sunday of the NFL season. What's up, people? A little bit late start, but we only have 6 games to get through. Lock at 6:40 tonight. We've got the first NFL game kicking off tonight. So baseball is getting put on the back burner a little bit, I guess. That's what's happening. So I do want to talk a little bit about yesterday's slate. Nothing too crazy. Why is that so narrow? If I do this, does that make the screen bigger? Sure does. That's exciting. Okay, so I got my lineups pulled up for yesterday. Nothing specific to work through. I got 3 lineups into the top 150. I got the 26th, 33rd, and 64th. They were all Orioles stacks. Best that I could do here was a Lyles Gibson combo. Lyles going for 1.2. Rutschman, not all that great, but I had the Hayes, I had the Santander, I had the Semien, and the Gorman, but everything else was just death. So while I got to 26th, I wasn't even in the neighborhood of first. First place was 193 too, so I was quite a bit away from even sniffing the top of this contest. I would have needed a lot of help. You kind of needed the St. Louis Cardinals up against Spencer Strider. Absolute domination there for Strider. Just kidding. Got destroyed. It was terrible. I had 77% of Strider. That was not fun at all. For my stacks, I had 29 Mets stacks, 29 five-mans, 25 Baltimore stacks, and then 25 White Sox stacks. Similarly, I had some Mets and White Sox and Orioles in 4-mans as well. So how much did I win? I won nothing. I lost quite a bit. Where are we hiding? $930. That was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's the 11th best performance of anyone that max entered yesterday. Only 2 max entry people made profit, one of which was the winner. And then shout out to Brick for making $96, $95. I don't want to round up. So not a great day in that regard. I mean, the top of the contest is littered with 150 maxers, which isn't very surprising. Just wasn't my day. Couldn't get it done. Kind of a bummer. What are you going to do? Time to break down the slate, folks. So I hope you're ready for it. If you care about the NFL, I've got NFL Contenders videos out already. Check those out on our YouTube channel, same channel you're watching right now. MLB Contenders are going to get recorded the moment I stop this. They'll be up around noon. Didn't strike me as the type of day that they needed to rush out for. So they'll be out. They'll be hitting the podcast feed. Check them out shortly. But for now, I'm going to move this window back over, and I'm going to start sharing Excel. And now we're going to talk about this slate. So, boop, there we go. Well, let's go ahead and do it, folks. That seems easy enough. We're going to go and talk. I don't know why we're on Angels Guardians first. This is a tough slate. There are some things I don't love, but that's the point of the show. We're going to get into it. So if you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so. I don't expect a massive crowd today. First day of the NFL season. I think today is the day that we see this show start to whimper, but I'm going nowhere. You get me till this regular season ends, and then I'll be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing for the playoffs, but we'll see. Rays and Mariners, 3.9 run implied total for the Rays, 5.1 for the Mariners. Zach Littell going for Tampa. Luis Castillo going for Seattle. As I look at it now, looks like I'm in lockstep with the top pitchers tool. We have Littell 13% top 2 pitcher. I have it at 11. We have Luis Castillo at 28. I have it at 31. Very little separation there. Zach Littell is 24% owned. I don't want to say that I feel comfortable saying that he shouldn't be, but he is a little overowned. He's 6,200. But this is a pretty tough spot. The run total, even in a pitcher's park, doesn't appear to be on his side. So I think starting there for that sort of conversation. He's thrown about 500 pitches to both hands, 134 x ISO to lefties with a 24% K rate, a 214 x ISO to righties, 15% K rate. Doesn't project very well in Steamer. So seeing him get 24% ownership, that's just too high for me. I think he should probably be somewhere in that 15 range. With that said, I have 7%. I think he's over-owned as an option, and he's not going to be the guy that I'm getting to. For the Mariners, different story. Luis Castillo gets to go to a pitcher's park. Now, he normally pitches in Seattle, so that's also a pitcher's park, but he's staying in a pitcher's park at least. He's got some strikeout stuff. 27% K rate to lefties this season, 26 to righties. He's had a lot of trouble with lefty power, but I do think that's a benefit for today. Lefty power, 89 park factor in Tampa. So that should help a little bit to mitigate some of this, but the lefties that are in the projected lineup, all four of them, Low, Lau, whichever one you want, Luke Raley and Aranda, all at least 170 or higher x ISO. So you're hoping Castillo can avoid that. I'm not as worried about the righty power for this team, especially against Castillo. Really nice strikeout matchup, too, for a 6-game slate for someone of his ilk. But he is $11K, so that is a big price tag. However, he's only 19% owned. And like I mentioned, 28% top 2 pitcher in our top pitcher tool. I think he's under-owned at 19%. I have 32. I have no issue getting to an 11K Luis Castillo. I think he looks really good here. Is it a tough matchup against the Rays because they're just simply good? Yeah, but the difference between Zach Littell and Luis Castillo is enough to make this a really interesting matchup for Seattle. So get yourself some Luis Castillo. If ownership holds, try to be a little bit lighter on Zach Littell. Now, I think it's pretty easy to talk about the Rays. They're kind of going to look like the Cardinals did yesterday against Strider. Now, obviously, Luis Castillo is not Spencer Strider, but Rays are dead last in top stack for us, for me. They're last in ownership. They're last in value. These guys are expensive. It's a really difficult place to want to go on a 6-game slate against the best pitching option on the slate. But we just saw what happens. You know, like every once in a while, that guy's just going to get bombed. The team's going to put up the runs, and the Cardinals become the way that you get to winning the slate. I will not be playing much of the Rays. I just don't see it as that kind of opportunity. The problem for Tampa is that they're expensive. But, you know, 1 out of every 30 times you play this slate, they're probably going to be the nuts. Seattle on the opposite side, we have 6th at 7.8%. I have them 4th at 10% top stack. So I'm much more interested in Seattle here against Zach Littell. I don't know why anybody would be other than Park. Price isn't all that problematic, although they are 9th out of 12, but it's 6,500 for Julio Rodriguez, and then you're not even in the 5Ks. Highest owned guy is Teoscar at 9%. I'm over that at 12. I think they're an easy team to get to. We have them 5. I think this is going to change just based on what their run total is right now. We have them 5% owned. That's 10th overall. I have them in 10% of lineups, 16 stacks. I'm 2xing the field on Seattle. I think that's the clear best thing to get to in this game. It's Seattle. It's Luis Castillo. I say get away from Littell at least a little bit. I don't see much path to getting to the Rays. Well, 1 down. That was easy. I don't know. I've got like no breath. I'm so tired, guys. So I've been working. I've been exhausting myself trying to code out some NFL work. And basically every single second that I've had free all of this week, I've just been spent coding and coding and coding. And I was unable to crack the code of what I needed. Even last night, I woke up at 4 a.m. today to hop on to start doing it. Immediately just felt nauseous, headache, dizzy, everything. I felt like I was hungover and drunk at the same time, just from like not getting sleep. So I was awake for like a half hour. I took a 30-minute nap. I woke back up, tried to do like another 30 minutes of work, went back to sleep for an hour. Finally feel good, but I don't feel myself. It's just been a really weird day. I'm ready to get like a really good night's sleep. I'm hoping that by Monday, when I do my showdown videos for Monday Night Football, that I've got every bit of everything that I need locked and loaded for you guys. We're going to have an extra video where I go through contenders and talk about it a little bit more on Twitter. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But lots of NFL content now. The season is here. Well, game 2. Marlins and Dodgers. 4.3 run implied total for the Marlins. 4.5 for the Dodgers. It's Braxton Garrett for Miami. It's Ryan Pepio for the Dodgers. 8,200 for Garrett against LA. 8,500 for Pepio against the Marlins. Now we're in Miami, so we absolutely negate righty power, and then we limit runs a little bit and limit righty power a little bit. If we want to start with anybody, I'll start with the guy that's more owned. That's Pepio at 8,500. He's 10% owned right now. I think he's a little under-owned, but I'm not getting to him. This is a price range that is funneling me to somebody else. But we have him 19% top 2 pitcher. I have him 13. I think calling it 15 feels about right. That's a little bit lower than a 10% ownership. So don't be afraid to get a little bit of Pepio against the Marlins. Although this is a Marlins team that's got a little bit of pop, a little bit of fear. Righties, like Pepio's only thrown like 200 pitches in the majors, but righties have tuned him up so far. I don't want to overreact to that sample or anything, but totally fine spot to get the Marlins bats if you wanted to. The problem is I'm mostly staying away from this game in its entirety. Braxton Garrett on the opposite side, 8,200. I think these guys look really similar today because Pepio gets to face the Marlins. Pepio's the worst pitcher. Braxton Garrett, better pitcher, has to face the Dodgers. So they're negating themselves. For Garrett, he's had no problems striking people out on the left side, 26% K rate across 600 pitches so far, but 23% K rate to righties and a 186x ISO to righties. Some of the righty power could be okay if it wasn't for the park just negating it. 7% owned for Garrett. I think he's under-owned as well. I think you should probably be looking at both of these guys in the 10 to 15% range. I am lighter on both, but I'm just light on this game in general. We have the Marlins 11th in ownership. We have the Dodgers 3rd. I'm going to put draw a line through the Marlins quickly. We have them 10th in top stack. I have them 11th, somewhere in that 4 to 5% range. They're 11th in ownership at 5%. That seems about where they should be. I'm underweight to the Marlins, although I do have a bit of Jazz Chisholm. I do not have any Marlins stacks against Pepio. Now, if we want to look at the Dodgers, I'm on a very different planet than we are. We have them 8.5% top stack. That's 4th. I have it 6%, which is 10th. I agree with me. I think our number is going to come down. We've got multiple teams with 5-run implied totals today that aren't playing in Miami. I like the Dodgers for sure, but this is a park that limits runs, limits power, and Braxton Garrett's good. They're not the 4th top stack for today. So if they are 3rd in ownership at close to 10%, this is not going to be a team that I get to all that frequently. They are expensive. They're close to the bottom from a value stance. Now, no one is getting like a ton of ownership. The high man on a 6-gamer is just 12% for Mookie. I don't think that anybody like those 12% guys are aggressively overowned, but as a collective, I think it's a little bit too much. So 10% of Jazz Chisholm is the most I have of anybody in this game. Pitchers, hitters, either team. I think this one is one that we want to try to stay away from and let it get quiet because I don't think we want much more ownership on the Marlins, and I really don't agree with the ownership that's coming into the Dodgers. 2 games down, 4 to go. We're at the 10:20 a.m. point. We've got like 90 people in here, which is kind of a bummer, but it's nice to have the 90 people that are here. Hit the like button if you haven't done it yet. What should we talk about? Schedule for the rest of the day. That's going to be a big one. So we got a lot going on. Let's pull up the schedule. All right. So NFL Showdown Strategy Show already happened. Laffy, Matt Gajeski, it's in the books. Check out the channel. They broke down tonight's game between the Lions and the Chiefs. A regular NFL Strategy Show is coming up after this at 11 a.m. That is the matchup show. That's the big one. Laffy and Eric Lindquist are going to go deep into this entire main slate. If you want to watch an NFL show, this is the one you want. Rainmaker Strategy Show with Greg at 1:30. Owner's Box Strategy Show with Greg at 4:30. Greg and I are back for Live Before Lock, MLB style at 6. Remember, lock at 6:40. And then Laffy and Neil Orfield, 7:15, taking you to 8:15 for NFL Live Before Lock. Our NFL Live Before Lock shows finally back. Sprite Soda. Every one of the shows are free always. We do not have paid shows. So follow this channel. Follow the Odds Shopper YouTube channel. Follow us on anywhere you get your podcasts, and you'll be able to find every single piece of content that we put out. Yankees and Tigers. This one is the talking point for today. 5.6 run implied total for the Yankees, and what I think stands out quite a bit, 4.9 for the Tigers. Now, the ballpark does play up power. We know that, but it does limit runs a little bit. Carlos Rodon going for the Yanks, and he's 7,500, 38% owned, the high man on the slate. On the opposite side is Eduardo Rodriguez, 9,100, 11% owned. So I don't know what to do here. If you're using any sort of long-term projection model, Carlos Rodon's the clear top pitcher today because he's going to project not like a $7,500 pitcher facing the Tigers. However, in 141 pitches this season against lefties, he has a 366 x ISO. In the 595 he's thrown to righties, 190. He's also striking out only 18% of righties. I don't know what to do here with Rodon. On paper, in our top pitchers tool, 25% top 2, I got him at 30. Leads me to believe he should probably be in that like 30 to 35% owned range. He's at 38. The problem is, I don't know if he's that guy anymore. It's a real issue. Steamer projects him with a 30% K rate and a 333 FIP. That is quite far off from what Carlos Rodon has done since he's been back in the league this season, obviously. So far, now, as I mentioned, 30% K rate in Steamer. It's 20 in the innings that he's thrown so far this season. He has a FIP of 664. That's twice as high as his Steamer projection. I'm going to make some adjustments to Carlos Rodon as we get further down the line. When we get to Live Before Lock, I'll have more to say. As it stands right now, he's the best pitching play on the slate from a point per dollar perspective, and I have a lot of him. I'm hoping that after digging into the data, I can bring that strikeout rate down a little bit, project him a little bit more reasonably, and I think I end up getting him in the 30s. But one of these days, we're either going to find out that Carlos Rodon is dead or that Carlos Rodon became himself again. I don't know when that day is going to happen. Now, Erod on the opposite side, a little bit easier to talk about. 9,100 is the third most expensive price tag on today's slate. That's important, clearly. Tough matchup against the Yankees, for sure. It's a park that plays up power. Erod, 28% K rate to lefties this year, 23 to righties. Righties are actually the thing that he gives up power to, 154 x ISO. That shouldn't be surprising. He's a lefty, but he's going to see a shit ton of righties. And that starts to be a little bit problematic here for Erod because he gets more strikeouts against lefties and he limits power against lefties, and he's just not going to see those guys. So he's 11% owned. Seems about right. I think he should be about 12. No complaints there, but I only have 5. I think it's a tough time to want to go to Erod. Now we get to bats. Very different conversation here. So I like the Yankees bats against Erod for basically all of the reasons that I just said. If he's ever going to give up any power, it's going to be against righties. And right now I've got 9 righties in the lineup. And obviously guys like Aaron Judge, Jason Dominguez, Torres, Stanton, Volpe, all big power. So, and even someone like Higashioka in the 9-hole, to get a $2,900 catcher like that, not a problem. We have the Yankees 6th in top stack, 4th in ownership. I have them 2nd in top stack. I do tend to think that I'm a little bit more correct here. They do have a massive implied total today. 8.5% owned. I've got 15, so I'm close to 2xing. I have 24 Yankee stacks. Highest owned Yankee right now is Aaron Judge at 10%. I have 23. I really like this because of the park and because of the fact that if Erod's going to give anything up, it's going to be against righties. That said, I don't mind getting to the Tigers. If you need value, not a bad spot. If you're not a believer in Carlos Rodon, if you believe way more in 2023 Rodon than past Rodon, then the Tigers are going to be a little interesting. Some power, not a lot, 160x ISO in the aggregate, but they're free. Second in top value for us, I got it first, call it like 20% chance. The most expensive bat in the Tigers lineup today is $4,700 Spencer Torkelson. They have, in this projected lineup, 4 different dudes that can play first, 3 different dudes that can play third. There's a lot of flexibility to be had here, but these guys are ultra cheap. And if Rodon is just not going to have it, I'm interested in the Tigers. They are 7% owned in the aggregate, which is 7th. I have 7%, and I have 11 stacks. This is a game that I'm looking to for offense. I'm hoping that I could walk back some of that Carlos Rodon as we get closer to lock. All right, I think it is about that time to talk a little bit about Owner's Box, the presenting sponsor of this show. I've talked about them for the past 2 days. It is not changing in this case, but it's important, I think, for us to talk about it because it's the best deal in the DFS space right now. And if you're sleeping on it, I think you're doing yourself a major disservice. So, got a cough. All right, we're in. First, click the like button. Second, click the link in the description of this video to go sign up an Owner's Box. At a minimum, you need to deposit $10. I think you should deposit at least 500, well, up to 500, because they will match up to 500. If you can put 500 in, you should, because you put 500 in, you now have 1,000, but you got to do at least 10. If you do that, after clicking that link, the promo code is Stochastic. When you sign up, you are going to get 1 month of our Stochastic Sims Max package. It's the best thing we've got going on. Brand new, $200 value. By signing up using that link, you get it for a month for free. And you're still getting that deposit bonus. But the key piece that we need to talk about, I have on the screen. We need to talk about it right now because it's the most important thing I can say to you guys. If you are playing DFS contests on Sunday, you need to do it here. Stop thinking about places like DraftKings and FanDuel. If you're just putting shots into the millie, you're doing yourself a disservice. Right now, they're running a $50K to first, $200K prize pool contest. It's $15 per entry. There are roughly 16,000 entries, and so far they have 900 filled. I can't guarantee it, but I am expecting overlay on this contest. Not just reduced rake, but actual overlay. My expectation is that this contest is the best contest that you can get into anywhere in the industry for week 1 Sunday NFL. You are costing yourself money by not playing this if there's overlay. The average entry returns more than you paid for it if they overlay. You have the opportunity to load up entries in a contest that might fill 2/3 of the way. If you've ever wanted a really nice shot at 50K, you'll never have a better one than this one. Sign up at Owner's Box using the link in the description. The promo code is Stochastic. Up to $500 on your first deposit and a month of our Stochastic Sims Max package. The biggest thing we have. Come join Owner's Box, everybody. I can't stress it enough. If you don't do it, you're just leaving me the 50K. And I'm going to be honest with you, I won't be mad about it at all. Guys, I'm going to be so trained up for the process show by the time we get to October. Just all this, like, talking by myself before the NBA season starts. It's going to be good. It's going to be very good. Yeah, you're welcome on the Strider thing. Nothing you can do there. That's just classic me burying a highly owned pitcher. Clayton, no, I don't have a model for soccer at all. Alrighty, next up, the Atlanta Braves taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals obviously had a big day yesterday. 3 points? This can't be right. There's no way that I have this line in here correctly. There's no chance that the Cardinals are massive favorites against the Braves here. Yeah. I don't know where I got whatever line is in there right now, but it ain't right. That's going to change things up pretty dramatically. Oh, I get it. Because I never actually copied the lines and totals over. So we're going to rerun everything while I'm talking here and refresh it because I ran that with the wrong lines. I even gave you guys the wrong lines. So just to touch on the things that are actually happening, Mariners Rays is 4.1 to 3.9. That last game, Yankees 4.7 to 3.7. That all of this is going to look a little bit different, but 6.4 run implied total for the Braves, 3.8 for the Cardinals. Massive stance here. Max Fried going for Atlanta, so you get a good pitcher. Adam Wainwright going for the Cardinals, so you get a bad pitcher. I'm sure you can understand how that works. Let's go ahead, since I've saved it, and update this, run new lineups, and then run my sim. That way we can get a better idea of where I actually do stand because everything's going to shift now. I was underselling the Braves by like 3 runs. So whatever Braves I have in my crunch now, we're not going to be there the right way based on the way that I ran it. So that's going to run. It'll take about 2 minutes and then we'll have the lineups. But I can still talk about Max Fried. And that's going to end up looking a lot different too because I guess we need to like just wait it out. Because I'm not getting to Fried, but I think the reason that I'm not getting to Fried is likely due to me projecting the Cardinals run total much higher. So we're going to wait this one out until we get there. 9,600. I could talk top pitchers. So he's 28% top stack or top pitcher. I had it at 21, so call it 25. A little bit higher with the ownership at 38%, but I don't think it's too crazy. He should probably be in that 25 to 30 range. Wainwright on the opposite side is unowned and likely should be. I have a bad feeling I'm going to end up with like 10% Wainwright, but you know, there's that. For real, I've been incredibly unlucky at pitcher stands this year. On like real life good dudes too. It's not like I'm like, oh, I got 67% to Cal Quantrill. That's not happening. I'm stacking. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got all of the Strider bombed. Oh, I've got all of the Garrett Cole bombed. It just never stops. It never stops. So summary here: don't play Wainwright, even if I am playing Wainwright. And then we're going to be able to talk about Brave stacks in a little bit and how much Fried we get in a little bit. I'm anxious to see how much this impacts the rest of these games. But like I had 8% Max Fried. There's no chance that's happening now that I have him projected differently. Like, what did I change his projection to? Yeah, I just bumped Max Fried's projection up by 2.5. That's what happened when I changed that line. Carlos Rodon's actually going up 2 more points. So whatever I had of him before is about to become a real problem. Real big problem. Who else's projections changed big time? Uh-oh, what did I just do? We're in Braves and Cardinals. We've updated the lines. There we go. That's the chart we need. We're saved. We're good. We're on chunk 29 of 30. So I'm about to refresh the old player pool here. And then we can get into everything we need. There we go. Yeah, it took 2 minutes to run. I was basically spot on. So let's refresh this bad boy. And then we could actually talk about exposures. Oh, yeah. So that changed in a staggering way. Somehow I ended up with all of the Angels. Now I'm going to negate that in a second. And yeah, I have all of the Carlos Rodon. So we'll have that conversation in a moment. But first, I got to negate that Angels exposure. Because we actually want other people to show up in lineups today. Is it? One more. All right. Now we've got what we need. Oh boy, I'm getting to the Cardinals here against Fried. This should be fun. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, here we go. So I'm light on Fried, and I'm getting to the Cardinals. This seems like a leverage spot. I do think Fried is mildly overowned, but, 3.8 run implied total is not all that fun. Braves are set up to smash. On paper, Max Fried is a hair overowned, but certainly looks good. And honestly is pretty comparable to Luis Castillo. So I mentioned having Castillo before. I don't have him that same way now. That has changed a little bit. Oh, cool. Ryan Nelson, 29% owned. I can't wait till all of this changes for me. As I look at it now, I think Max Fried is a better option than Luis Castillo. However, I do think that he is pretty significantly over-owned. That's going to allow me to get to Castillo. Please don't play Adam Wainwright. But now we got to talk about stacks. So I got to rerun that as well, because clearly I don't have the Braves top stack odds at 8th. So let's rerun top stack. And then I'll rerun top pitchers. And then we'll actually have something to talk about. So there's stack. There's pitchers. Yeah, that looks a little bit different now. Braves, number 1 in top stack, matching our projections, right around 26%. Obviously very expensive to get to, but still a decent enough value on a 6-gamer. However, they are 20% owned in the aggregate. I have 15. I have 16 Brave stacks. They're a fantastic option. Nobody's going to be surprised to hear that. Rodon plus Braves is going to be something that everybody tries to get to. You need value somewhere to get to Atlanta. Find it in pitching. Clearly, Ronald Acuna is the best guy you can get to. Doesn't matter what Sean V says. Play Ronald Acuna. Play the Braves. They look amazing on paper. They just happen to be the chalk. They're 20% owned. Do with that what you will. However, for me, apparently it's Cardinals season. Didn't see that one coming. Max Fried gives up no power to either hand. This dude never gets touched up. And yet, it looks like I'm going to be going to the Cardinals. It's happening. 5.5% owned. We have them 7th in top stack, 5th or 4th, somewhere around 9% top value. They're 5.5% owned, and their stack score is close to 7.5. This is basically the Cardinals going under-owned like they did yesterday, and Max Fried going, to me, a little over-owned in comparison to where he normally is. Maybe the strikeouts for this year are real. Maybe that'll be a different situation. But I'm going back to the Cardinals. Now, I'm not going to have 33 stacks of the Cardinals, or at least I hope that I don't. If I do, I do. They've got a lot of power in this lineup. Maybe this park and that power will allow the Cardinals to take advantage of Max Fried. But for right now, it looks like I'm a day late, and I'm going to be getting to the Cardinals here against a chalk pitcher. Most exposed Cardinal for me, either Tommy Edman or Wilson Contreras. All right, 2 to go. 4.8 run implied total for the Cubbies, 3.7 for the Diamondbacks. Javier Assad going for Chicago. Ryan Nelson going for the Diamondbacks. We have Assad 17% top 2 pitcher, 12. I have it at 12. Call it 15. He's 10% owned. Probably a little under-owned. Not necessarily the type of guy that you need to go out of your way to get to. He's not very good. Ryan Nelson is also not very good. We have him 5% top 2 pitcher. I have it 11. He should probably be like 8 or 9% owned. But the problem here is that because of his value, I think he's pretty significantly under-owned for the size of this slate. Now, I have 29%. That will never last by the time we get to 6 o'clock. The data just flattens itself out a little bit as we move on further. But I think that if Ryan Nelson is unowned, I'm going to be getting to a little bit of Ryan Nelson here today. I'm not all that worried about the Chicago Cubs. And if I need to find value, my other choices are Cal Quantrill, who's also getting 23% ownership, or Adam Wainwright, who faces the Braves. So I think I'm going to offload some of that Cal Quantrill ownership to Nelson, and to a lesser degree, Littell to Nelson, because I don't think those guys look all that different. And yet those two, Littell and Quantrill, are getting the ownership, but Ryan Nelson is not. Now, hitting here, I have basically the same amount of stacks for both. 10 Cubs stacks, 11 Diamondback stacks. They're both 8% owned on the dot. The Cubs are the higher ranked stack, but they're not as good of a value as Arizona. Ultimately, I think they're basically properly owned. I have a little under 7% of the Cubs. I have right on 8% of the Diamondbacks. I think you kind of want a little bit of all of this game. I think you can maybe not as much Assad just because he's 7,300. But if you want to use him as like a pivot to, I think his ownership is actually correct next to Rodon. If Rodon's 38, Assad should be 10. That's what we have in ownership. That's about where I have it. Maybe a little high on Rodon, a little low on Assad, but not by much. But I think Ryan Nelson as a value guy is going to get slept on. Cubs and Diamondbacks bats are just like filler. The most I have of anybody is Corbin Carroll at 17%, but lefty-righty against Assad. I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, it's 14% to Alec Thomas. This is just a game where I think you kind of need pieces of everything because I think it all looks pretty similar relative to salary. That's where I stand on Cubs Diamondbacks for now. That could change dramatically by the end of the day. Who knows? Maybe the wind will change. Then finally, I guess we're going to get to what I have as my favorite team. We'll see how that ends up shaking out. No part of this is going to be fun, but I really do like the matchup. Maybe this will change once we're like missing a line or something for this one. But the Angels have a 5.1 run implied total. The Guardians, 4.1. That's the way that I have it. I had to make my own line for this game. I don't think there's a line out yet, but let's look it up now and see. Because if this total really is north of 9, it's going to look pretty good for the Angels. Yeah, still not a total on this one. So if we see it come in lower, maybe that'll change. But I think the total that I have in is the one that's going to get us where we want to be. It's Griffin Canning going for the Angels and Cal Quantrill going for the Guardians. 8,800 for Canning, 5,300 for Cal Quantrill. 16% ownership coming into Canning at 8,800. I think that's totally fine here. While it's a terrible strikeout matchup against the Guardians, Griffin Canning does have strikeout stuff, so I think he could negate that a little bit. He does give up power to lefties and righties. 201 x-ISO to righties, 170 to lefties. That's going to be kind of tough for like Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor. There's no other major crazy power there. So I like the idea of getting to Canning. He's 16% owned. I'm a little bit higher than that. We have him 20% top 2 pitcher, only 16% owned. Canning's underrepresented. Cal Quantrill, on the other hand, we have 23% owned. If my line is right, that's nuts. I'm guessing it goes away. We have Quantrill 10% top pitcher, 31% top value. Even if you want to say that we should be factoring in the value more, I still think he's a little bit over-owned. I think it's more interesting to get to the Angels if they have a 5-run implied total, even without Shohei Ohtani. Park plays up power. Cal Quantrill, we haven't touched on yet. 157 x-ISO to lefties, 18% strikeout rate. 222 x-ISO to righties this season with a 7% strikeout rate. So Brandon Drury, Logan O'Hoppe, Randall Grichuk look great today against Quantrill. I want the Angels bats. Quantrill gets bombed. The park helps for offense. I think these guys are going to be under-owned. I've got them in 22% of my lineups. The most owned Angel is 9% Logan O'Hoppe. I love this matchup. Get yourself to the Angels. Now, if we see this line come in and it's 8 instead of 9, then my love for the Angels will come down. But if I'm right about what this total is going to be, I have them third, and I have them as the best value on the slate because the most expensive bat in the Angels lineup is $4,300 Brandon Drury. These guys are totally free, which also makes it a lot easier to get to your Luis Castillos and Max Frieds of the world. On the opposite end, we have the Guardians, second in top stack, first in top value. I do not agree with these numbers because I don't think that is showing the proper line for this game. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll like the Guardians a little bit more. DraftKings has it at 8. Interesting. That is not how I would project this game on paper for these two pitchers, for Quantrill and for Griffin Canning. I get it to up north of 9. FanDuel doesn't have it yet. I don't like logging on to DraftKings Sportsbook just because it logs me out of the DFS side. But anyway, we'll change it eventually. Clearly, Jose Ramirez looks good. I think Josh Naylor looks good, but I don't really love this spot for Cleveland, guys. I'm not going to lie. Maybe that changes for live before lock. Make sure you're watching it. But if they're going to be 12.5% owned, I am going to be under on Cleveland. That's going to be the issue for me. I think this ends up being a spot, so long as Griffin Canning is the one that's on the hill for the Angels. So as I look at this now, we're going to get done a little bit early. I want to make sure the NFL matchup show can get off without a hitch, and I got to record these contenders videos. If we're summing it all up, I think Carlos Rodon is the best pitching option on the slate, but if you are a believer in his 2023, run away from him if you can. After that, Griffin Canning, Luis Castillo as a pivot to the ownership to Max Fried, both look pretty good. If we're talking hitting, I really like the Angels stack. I'm going to be different by going to the Cardinals, but the Braves are the top overall stack, and that should be no surprise. That's what happens when Adam Wainwright is on the opposite end of everything. Does anybody have any questions for today's slate before I duck on out of here? Anything at all? I'll hit on it. Otherwise, we are going to bounce. You're going to get in it. NFL matchups coming up at 11. That's going to be it. Okay, Caesars has it 8.5, 115 to the over. I think we might get pretty close to like 8-6, 8-7, 8-8 by the time it settles. I'm usually not that far off, so we're getting there. I think that's going to be it, folks. Guys, thank you for being here. It's been a blast. We're back tomorrow. There's no football, so nothing to worry about there. You will get Greg and I tonight for Live Before Lock, but we're back for the strategy show tomorrow. I assume we've got a really full slate. Good luck, everybody. Come join us later on. Watch my contenders videos. Peace.